Just a few weeks ago, I told a CEO that he didn't have time to lead his company. There was an incredible amount of silence when I said that. You could feel the tension coming through the Zoom screen. He had just spent 20 plus minutes telling me how busy he was, how much he had on his plate, how many people needed his time. Now, let's be clear. This guy's good. He's in the seat for a reason. He has earned the right, and he has incredibly good intentions. But that's not the problem. The problem is that he hadn't structured time to reinforce what was really important. There were just too many people pulling on him, and he didn't want to let them down. And so this is like the first element that we have to really address is when we get overburdened in a leadership role, often we're doing it out of good intent. So I asked him this question: what is it that you're teaching your team when the CEO doesn't plan or follow through? There was another pause, and then it hit him. His chaos wasn't just his problem. It was becoming their culture. And that's what we're going to unpack today. Here's what most senior leaders miss. Your calendar isn't just managing your time. It isn't just an allocation of meetings in a place where you try to fit everything in. It's a teaching mechanism. You are teaching everyone in your organization what leadership looks like. You are sharing what your priorities really are. If you're constantly canceling things or moving things or always too busy, you don't have time to lead. When you operate reactively, scheduling back-to-back meetings with zero prep time, responding to every urgent request, or responding to every request as if it were urgent, never protecting your thinking time, you're modeling that intentionality is an optional element. And your team? Yeah, they're learning. Research from Harvard Business Review's CEO time study found that only 43% of CEO time actually advances strategic agendas. Well, that means that 57% of the time, the CEO is not doing the job that they were hired to do. And for some leaders, that's as low as 14%. McKinsey discovered that only 9% of executives are very satisfied with their current allocations. And based on a recent post I made on LinkedIn, this topic really resonates. At the time of recording, there's over 90,000 people that have liked or viewed this post about a CEO not allocating their time. Time management is a real issue, and it drives burnout. There's so many things that come from not being ruthless educators of our time. But the real issue isn't just I need to have a more effective calendar. The real issue is I need to prioritize. I need to decide in advance what's most important. And then I can schedule my time, my effort, and my energy to map to those priorities. Show me your calendar, and I'll show you your priorities. Show me your calendar, your real calendar, not the hypothetical one. Show me how you're actually spending your time, and I'll show you what your ROI is, your return on invested time. That's what we're going for here. So in today's episode, I want to share a framework with you. But before I do that, I want to tell you why this is important to me, and frankly, why this is still something I really work hard on. In fact, I guard against myself because I have a propensity to say, yes, I have a propensity to want to do more things. And it started years and years ago. In fact, I've probably struggled with time allocation, or more importantly, saying no to the things that aren't most important for most of my career. And let me take you back to probably 2014, 2013, somewhere around then. I was working 70 plus hours a week. I was telling myself that I was serving clients well. I was being available. I was doing what good leaders do, or at least what I thought good leaders do. And, someone called me out. When's the last time you were fully present at dinner? I couldn't answer because even though I was physically there, my brain was still in the last meeting or processing some issue or handling something that probably wasn't mine to handle. And that's when I realized I didn't have a time management problem. I had a leadership problem. I was teaching my family, I was teaching my team that presence was negotiable and that intentionality was something you got to do someday. And that's just not my way. That's not how I'm wired. I want to be intentional because I believe if we make intentional choices, We can decide in advance what's most important. We can execute. We can have much higher likelihoods of success. So I built a system. I learned from a lot of people. I've been using a Franklin Covey planner for probably 10 or 15 years. So I was used to prioritizing. In fact, that's probably the first place I ever heard about the big rocks and making sure that we put the big rocks in the jar first. I just was always afraid of drifting because I knew that I did. And I didn't want to pull some productivity guru's fantasy schedule and try to make it work for me. I just took the best of what I had learned from Covey, from Michael Hyatt, from all these resources based on my actual life, my actual commitments, and the results I needed to deliver. And so in the show notes, I'll put a picture of the calendar that I use now that helps me guide my time. Key word here, guide my time. I don't hit my ideal week calendar 100% of the time. 75% is my target. And there are some weeks, man, I'm 50%. And there's some weeks, 80 or 90%. And I can guarantee those weeks where I'm running 80 or 90% are the same weeks when I do my weekend review where I go, wow, what a productive week. What an effective week. And so the link that's in the show notes, the calendar tab there, is my actual October 2025 calendar. And here's where most leaders go wrong. They try to plan their week without planning their year. What happens is, and this is what happens with most leaders' calendar, Monday morning arrives, calendar opens up, the email opens up, requests start flooding in, slots start getting filled up. By Wednesday, you're triple booked and you're wondering where all of your strategic thinking time went. You can't plan a week if you haven't planned your year. And so the way we teach leaders and the systems that I have built and the leaders that we teach in our Leadership Accelerator programs, we talk about the rhythm of success. In fact, that's the name of our module where we deal with this. We say, hey, before we go to an ideal week, before we get into how we want to spend our time, we need to have an investment strategy first. We need to decide, hey, what is our investment strategy? How much time do we want to be on vacation? When do we want to do our deep thinking periods? How do we want to plan our work? You can't plan the week. You can't have good investments if you don't have an investment strategy. And so there's 3 levels to this system. And I like to think of them as building a house. You need the foundation before the walls and the walls before the roof. The level 1, the foundation, that's where you anchor out your year. You put the year frameworks in advance. You say, hey, I want to take this time for vacation. This is an important season for budget, so I'm going to put some time on the calendar for deep work. And then you can decide how you want to spend your time. Level 2, theming out your days, and it eliminates context shifting. It's really hard to go from working on a client call to a marketing call to a podcast recording or whatever it is that I'm doing in my world. So I try to chunk it. I try to keep myself in the same zone so I don't have to do context switching. So I can be recording podcasts and doing content creation in one zone of time, one day, and I'm doing deep client work. I'm doing client engagement work on different days. And then level 3, the roof, you've got to protect your transitions. You got to give yourself balance time. I make sure that when I'm doing core work, I have prep time and I have post-call work. I have wrap-up time. In my old call center days, we always had post-call work, the time where you could finish the work that you committed to on that call. And it's incredibly important. Going back to that CEO study, 43% of CEO time is advancing the strategic agenda. Some leaders are as low as 14%. Why? Because we're letting urgent things dictate the calendar instead of designing our calendars with intention first. Here's how level 1 works. Here's what we need to do. You have to first block out your non-negotiables a year in advance. Right now, if you look at my calendar, I have my weekly Sabbath time. It's on my calendar every week. I blocked it out a year in advance. Do I always hit it? No, I wish I did. There are weeks where I am grinding and I'm just not able to do it, but I'm getting better every single week. And I had to put it on there. Block your vacations, block your quarterly planning meetings, whatever it is that you need to have that's a non-negotiable. That's what I like to recommend. Look at your year, block your non-negotiables. I once had a CEO tell me that I was crazy suggesting that he block his vacation time a year out. He said, things will come up. I can't plan that far in advance. My response was, well, things always change. The real question is whether or not you're changing your priorities to accommodate others or whether others are accommodating your priorities. You are the CEO. You're the leader. You're in charge of your time. Yes, things will change. Yes, you have to reshift based on competing priorities, but you can't plan that way. So in this case, he blocked the time. The world didn't end. His team adapted, clients respected the boundaries, and for the first time in years, he actually took his anniversary trip without working through it. Second, block the quarterly strategic planning days. I've had clients before say, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to fit it in. So, well, you can't fit it in next week. But if you plan a year in advance and you tell me you can't find 4 days to do a quarterly reflection and planning, I'm going to tell you you're crazy. You've got to allocate the time. When we protect our time for strategic reflection, thinking, and doing better planning, we get better insights into employees, our customers, our competitors. We get time to think. And anchoring isn't about being unavailable. It's about being intentional. It's reflection made systematic. And I think that's the key here. This isn't about being unavailable. This isn't about telling people no. This is about telling yourself what's most important and then following that plan. And the third principle is to block a weekly review and planning time. This is one of my non-negotiables. On my calendar on Friday afternoons, I do a summary of the week. I look at what happened, what didn't happen, what I have to do better. And on Sundays, I plan the week ahead. I allow myself to marinate between my review and my plan, but I've tried a lot of different systems. That's the one that I found works best for me every single week. And I guarantee you the weeks when I've missed, those are my least productive weeks. The weeks where I have been too busy to plan are the weeks where I look back and go, what did I accomplish? Level one's the foundation. You anchor out your year and then your week makes sense. When you try to plan your weeks without annual anchors, without non-negotiables codified in, you're always going to be in reaction mode. People are exhausted by 2 p.m. because they've been in meetings all the day. The real issue is they've lost so much effort and energy to context shifting. Carnegie Mellon actually found out that when executives work on 5 projects simultaneously, only 20% of their energy goes to actual work. The other 80% lost to context shifting. 80%. Think about that. Here's the math. You're working 60-hour weeks, but 48 of those hours are just your brain trying to remember what you were doing before the last interruption. Day theming helps eliminate this tax. So on my calendar, and I think I may have gotten this from Michael Hyatt, I can't remember. I look at my weeks and I go, okay, Mondays is when I'm going to do this type of work. I'm going to do planning. I'm going to do client calls. I'm going to do this type of work. Tuesdays, I'm doing this type of client work. Wednesdays, that's my non-work day. This is my game changer. This is something I highly recommend. A no meeting day, deep focus work, no external meetings. Now, does that mean you can't have a meeting with a client? Absolutely not. Those are okay. But that's something I've done in the last several organizations. A no meeting day is an absolute game changer. The teams know, clients know, the calendar isn't available for booking. You know what people do? They work. They get done the most important things. They do the work that actually moves the business forward. It's strategic planning. It's building systems. It's writing code. It's whatever it is that needs to happen. For me, Thursday is my growth and learning day. I do a mastermind group with 7-Figure Leap. I have some reading time scheduled. I do some podcast recording in the afternoon. It's a development day for me. Friday is my podcast recording day. I do creative work in the mornings, I do client work in the afternoons, and then I'll wrap up. Here's what theming your day does. Your brain stops burning energy on what should I do next, and it allows you to say, this is my focus category. This is where I'm going to be spending my energy. Now, I've had folks say, hey, Dusty, I'm a creative. I can't just plan my time that way. Okay, then make sure that you've got enough flexibility when you feel creative that you have the opportunity to go do it. I can't imagine anything worse than feeling particularly creative and then having to stick in a meeting that is bureaucratic or isn't aligning with what I'm able to create that day. So make this super actionable. I don't want this to come across as pie in the sky or preachy. Start with one day. Make Wednesday a meeting-free day. Make it a day, Wednesday afternoons, where you just block your calendar and say, this is my focus time. Protect it ruthlessly for 30 days. Watch what happens. See how you feel, and then expand it. Now, here's the thing that most leaders miss completely, and this was the root cause with the CEO I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. There's not enough time to do the work. There's no transition time. There's no time allocated to do the thing that you said you were going to do during that meeting or on that call. You have to have transition time. post-call work time I mentioned before. Most folks have meetings like this. In fact, this was one of the most common comments that came through that LinkedIn post is that people were saying, I'm in back-to-back meetings all the day. Back-to-back meetings are the enemy of effective leadership. They're the enemy of productivity. And it doesn't mean that you need to have an hour to prepare or an hour to wrap up. 5 to 10 minutes is better than nothing. In fact, quick, easy tip, don't have any hour-long meetings. Make every meeting 50 minutes and book the window for an hour. So to give yourself that 10 minutes. I think that's how my calendar is set up automatically. Want to make sure that you give yourself the 5 or 10 minutes to review, the 5 or 10 minutes to wrap up, and it transforms meeting effectiveness. If you're a leader, you start installing these practices into your teams, they will thank you and you'll thank them for all the productivity you're going to get out of it. So this isn't a productivity episode. This isn't about how to, follow some new perfect plan. This is really about how do you change how you think. This is really about understanding that our calendar is a reflection of our priorities. We can say one thing, but when our calendar says something different, the calendar wins, and it tells a really important story to everyone around us. Now, life's going to happen. Things are going to change. And that's why I don't want anyone to hear this and go, well, I have to do this perfectly or it doesn't work. 80% is good enough. 75%, some weeks, 50% may be the case. Putting in a process, planning your work, working your plan, giving yourself the time and space to think and do the most important things, that's a game changer. Transitions are important. And when you give yourself those little windows to do the most important thing that you committed to, not only are you going to feel less stressed, you're also going to create a high accountability culture. So let me give you a real life example. Here's what this looked like in practice. The CEO from the opening story, here's what we did. We audited his calendar. We downloaded 30 days of appointments. We categorized every single one as career, personal, family, spiritual, or reactive. And then we started looking at the percentage. He was spending 70, 80% of his time reacting to others, reacting to other people putting calendar invites on his calendar, reacting to people saying, I need some of your time. So what did we do? We just said, let's put in some windows. Week 2, we blocked out his year. We said, what are the most important things in the coming year? Let's get them on the calendar. What are your non-negotiables? Let's get them on the calendar. Week 3, we just started with one simple theme day. In fact, in his case, I think we went just a themed afternoon. This is what we're going to do on this afternoon. Wednesday became his meeting-free deep work day. We moved every recurring schedule off of Wednesday, updated his calendar link so he wasn't even bookable. And that's a key. Now, I'll admit, at first he kind of fought me on this. He said, this sounds and feels like too much structure. I said, well, what's worse? Running around like a chicken with your head cut off or having time to think, doing the most important things? And again, he's a good leader. He's a great leader. And what we really wanted to do was serve his team. So I just asked him, I said, how do you want to serve your team? What is it that you want your team to learn from you by how you treat your time, by how you manage your calendar? So he did. And I'm pleased to say it worked. Those meeting-free days, now they're the favorite day of the entire week for everybody on the team. And that transformation wasn't about doing more. It was just about leading with intentionality. And here's the thing, this isn't just for CEOs. This framework works whether you're leading a Fortune 500 company or a 5-person startup, or if you're just leading yourself. Frankly, that may be the most important place to start. Whether you're an executive, an entrepreneur, you have an assistant or you don't scale excellence with intensity. You scale it with consistency. The principles don't change. Anchor your year, theme your days, protect your transitions. Your calendar is either demonstrating intentionality or it's modeling chaos. There's no middle ground. Your team is watching. What are you teaching them? I want to do something that I don't normally do, but I thought this would be super cool. In reading the hundreds of comments and thoughts and messages I got off of the post on LinkedIn, there were some questions that came through that I thought would be really cool to dig into. Question number 1, how do you handle unexpected emergencies that disrupt your theme days? It's a great question. First, define emergency. I always like to say, hey, a failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Most emergencies are just unplanned work from people who didn't plan ahead. Now, real emergencies, they absolutely exist. Client crisis, family crisis situations. You have to be able to roll with it. You have to be able to move. You have to be able to adjust. So you handle them. You shoot, you move, you get around the corner, you do whatever it is that you need to do. Having some transition blocks gives you a little bit of flexibility, but most importantly, don't try to follow an ideal week schedule into the wall. Just use it as a guide. It's a roadmap to success. Think about it this way, though. Don't let someone else's poor planning constitute an emergency on your part. It's not. If somebody asks for a Wednesday meeting and that's your no meeting day because they didn't plan ahead, that's their challenge, not yours. Don't solve it for them. That's a teaching moment, not an exception to the deep work day. But again, theme days, deep work days, they're a template, not a prison. Some weeks require deviation, but the goal, return to the template as a baseline, center yourself, and get back after it. Question number 2, what if my boss or my board doesn't respect these boundaries? This is a leadership conversation, not a calendar problem. First, have you clearly communicated your boundaries and the business rationale? If you haven't explicitly said, I'm protecting Wednesday afternoons to do this type of work, and it will help me improve my quality, deliver these results we've agreed upon, you can't expect others to honor that. You have to communicate what it is you're doing. I always tell folks with this ideal week calendar, share it with your team. They will understand what you're doing and they will respect that time. And frame it as performance optimization. Like tell folks, I'm protecting and prioritizing my time so I can do the most important things and honor the commitments I've made to you. When you do that, people respect what you were saying. They want you to be successful. Now, some folks will say, hey, they don't care. They were going to still interrupt me. That's a leadership problem. That's a communication problem, and maybe even a cultural problem and a value alignment problem. Make sure that you get into it. Make sure you have those deep conversations that need to be had. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to make the right decisions about what's going to create success for you in your role. Most reasonable leaders that I've worked with respond well to clear communication. Here's what I'm doing. Here's why I'm doing it. And here's what you can expect to see. If you can answer those things about how you're protecting your time, not many people are going to be unhappy. All right, here's a fun one. How on earth did you decide on 4 a.m. for your first hour? That seems extreme and frankly a little dumb. All right. Well, for me, it's not about 4:30 a.m. as some, way of proving out how tough I am. I'm just naturally an early riser. My chronotype is to get up early and get after it. I love my first 2 hours of the day, and it's when I do my deep thinking. For me, my early morning time is non-negotiable. That's when I do my devotional, prayer, morning journal. And after that, I can work out. After that, I can do creative work. But that's what works for me. Other people like to work out at night. They may be able to go run at 9 p.m. I can't do that. It just doesn't work for me and my body type, my mental state. So do what works for you. Find your time, find your window, but work it out so that you get that precious time to focus and center before the day begins. Somebody asked me what calendar software I used, and it's just a Google Calendar, nothing fancy. I use pretty robust color coding so that I can run reports off of it, but nothing fancy. The system matters more than the tool. Having something structured is much more important. Any calendar will work. Here's a question I loved. How do you handle team members who still try to schedule over your theme days? Well, I tell them no. I use Calendly with constraints. I use a calendar block that only allows them to get certain windows. And if people come and tell you, I need this time on this day, my first question is, why? Why today? Why on the block day? Why is it you need that time? If the answer is good, reasonable, and rational, we can talk about it. But I'm always going to go back to why. And I'm always going to go back to, and what prevented you from making sure that we had this on one of our other open days? So much of the time, people can't answer that question because they're reacting. And that's what we're trying to get folks to do. Move from reaction to planning. And one more. Can this work for entrepreneurs who don't have a team? Absolutely. In fact, I think this is as critical for them as it is for anyone else because they're their own worst enemy. And we have to lead ourselves first in order to be effective. Having a calendar, having a plan, having intent to how we want to spend our time, how we want to invest our time, it's a game changer. Whether you're leading a team of 1 or 100,000, the time is precious. You have to plan it. All right, here's today's takeaway. Now, your calendar isn't about managing your time. It's about teaching your team what leadership looks like. If you'd like to download our ideal week outline, welcome to do so. It's in the show notes. Would love for you to download that and make it work for you. But remember, it's a template. It's a guide. It's a roadmap. It's not about being perfect. Just think about it this way. When you operate reactively, our teams learn that intentionality is optional. When you protect strategic time, they learn that it's essential. Great leaders don't just create clarity, they install the rhythms that keep it alive. It's a simple 3-level system. Anchor your year, theme your days to prevent context shifting, and protect transitions between commitments. It's not about doing more. It's about leading intentionally. It's about showing everyone around you that planning isn't a luxury, that you honor your commitments, and that your calendar reflects your priorities and not the other way around. If you want the exact color-coded template I use, we put a link in the show notes. It's the same one that I use every day. I reset it on a quarterly basis, and it makes me a little bit better each and every day. And here's my question for you. What's currently preventing you from taking control of your calendar? I'd love to hear from you. Reach out on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. This is a really important topic, and it's one that doesn't get better without taking time to reflect and plan. Until next time, keep leading with intention. Hey, before you go, if this episode helped you see leadership differently, I have 3 personal requests. First, and this is the most important one, share this with one leader who needs it. Think of someone in your network who's frustrated with their team's execution or is trying to scale their own impact. Copy this episode link right now and text them, hey, I just listened to this episode and I think you'll get real value from it. That simple act of sharing, that is servant leadership in action. Second, subscribe to Leadership Unlocked. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite podcast player, just hit subscribe or the follow button. That way you won't miss the next episode and it helps us reach more leaders like you. And third, if you're willing, this would be a huge help for us. Leave a 5-star rating and write a quick review. I know it takes 60 seconds of your time, but here's what it does. It helps other leaders discover the show. Every rating, every review, it's how we expand our impact together. So those 3 things, share with a friend, subscribe, leave a review. I'm deeply appreciative and that would give us so much help. Thanks for being part of the Leadership Unlocked community. Now go create some clarity for others.